Hi, I'm Moby. I'm here in New York City, and you're watching Urban Nation.
Can you get that, please? Can you look to me, please?
First and foremost, I guess I think of myself as a musician. I've been making music for 26 years, actually. I started out playing classical guitar, but there's so many other things I love to do. You know, I love drawing pictures, I love making little films, I love taking, taking photographs, writing essays, but all those things I just sort of do for fun as a hobby, whereas, the focus of my life is really making music. Most of my life is spent either making music or listening to music or working on music or doing something with music. And it's interesting because music is my job, but it's also what I do for fun. So, I'll go into my studio and I'll work on music to be released on an album, and then to take a break, I'll maybe go play guitar. And then for fun, I'll go out to a nightclub and go dancing or go and listen to music. So music is as common in my life as almost as water is. It's just something that's in almost every aspect of my life. Yeah, we did it 2 years ago. So it would have been 2000.
It's a good show, so the show is nice.
Oh yeah, that's when I had this terrible, terrible insomnia. I was so shattered. So we'd gone from England to Singapore to Australia to Japan to San Francisco to New York to Germany back to England. So by the time this was in 2 weeks. So by the time I got to England, my poor little body clock had just shut down. One of the reasons that I like to work alone is that when I have other people around, it makes me a little bit uncomfortable. But if I work by myself, I can be more experimental, and I can work at any time of day. If I want to work at 9 in the morning, I can. If I want to work at 9 at night, if I want to work at 3 in the afternoon or 3 in the morning, it's really up to me. And that way, I can sort of control all the elements. And yes, I guess it is a little bit strange because when I make my records, it's just me. I write the songs and I play the instruments and I do the recording and the production and engineering and mixing. So it's a strange way to make records, but it's what I'm most comfortable with. When I have singers come into my studio, it's strange because I'm so used to being in my studio by myself. So it's weird to look up and see someone else standing in my studio because my studio is very small. And then when it comes to touring, when I have to take the music and teach other musicians how to play these songs, it's a little bit odd because they're such personal, private songs that I then have to share with other musicians. But I've been doing this for a while, so I think I've gotten used to it. The musician Eric Satie, the French composer, on a very personal level, I just love his music. But what I also love is the idea behind his music, that it's music that can either fit into the background very nicely, or it's music that if you pay attention to it, it's very rewarding. And that's the records I make. I hope to make similar records. I'd like to make a record that if someone was having a dinner party, they would play one of my records and it would just blend nicely into the background. Or if someone was to sit down with headphones and listen to the record, they would get very emotionally involved in it and find it rewarding. I use Cubase on one computer and Pro Tools on the other one. Yeah. I like to have them separate because that way, if something goes wrong with one computer, I can work on the other, and if something goes, Or as a musician and a public figure, one of the things that drives me is I really love communicating with people. So I love doing interviews, I love making records, I love playing concerts, but I also have my website, which is moby.com, and every day I write updates for it, and I draw little pictures and I take photographs for it. So in some ways I feel really fortunate that I have this need to communicate with people, and I have so many different avenues that are available to me that I can use to communicate with. Music technology is very interesting because it's enabling more and more people to make music. Traditionally, in order to make a successful record, you had to spend lots and lots of money going into recording studios with engineers and producers and all these different things. And now, a lot of great records get made by people in their bedrooms. I make my records in my bedroom. And, when I make a record, it's a combination of organic instruments and electronic instruments. So it's me playing guitar, piano, drums, etc., with more unconventional electronic elements. But someone who doesn't even know how to play an instrument can make a really good record. You know, someone with just a computer can sit down and make a terrific piece of music. So really, technology has enabled people to, you know, make music in ways that they probably wouldn't have even considered before. As more and more people start downloading music, and as more and more people start burning CDs, obviously record sales are going to go down. If people can get something for free, there isn't much reason for them to pay for it. How that's going to affect the music business or musicians, obviously we're not going to make as much money. But in some ways maybe that's positive, because there are, unfortunately, a lot of people in the music business who are just there to make money. And I think in a music world where people weren't able to make money, a lot of the boy bands would disappear, a lot of the pop groups would disappear. Because really, I mean, when you look at the boy bands and the girl bands and the pop groups, they're not there for the love of music. They're there because they want to make a lot of money. And if there's no money to be made, maybe there'll be more integrity in music.
Can you go spell my name, please?
If I look at myself, I love to take photographs, and I love to draw little pictures, and I love to write essays, but they're a hobby for me. Just because I love to take photographs doesn't mean that I don't like to go to an art exhibit of someone who's a great photographer. Just because I like to write little essays doesn't mean I don't like to read, you know, someone who's a professional writer. So the fact that lots of people can make music at home, that's really fun, and I love that fact, you know, that people can make music in the privacy of their own home, even if they're not a musician, but I still think it's not going to replace that experience of listening to a beautiful piece of music made by a professional musician.
Where is it?
Oh, this isn't too bad. New York is strange because in the summers it's like Venezuela, and in the winters it's like Moscow. So this is actually, I mean, this isn't too bad at all. It changes all the time. Then you have these days that are just so bitterly cold, and the last couple winters have been really nice. When I was growing up, it was so much colder.
Global warming.
Yeah, I mean, when I was growing up, it was always, in the winter, it was always snowing. You could always go skating. And now, that's just not the case. In New York, it's interesting because I can walk down the street and occasionally someone will stop me, but first of all, there's so many celebrities in New York. I mean, Robert De Niro lives here. There's so many really genuinely huge celebrities that I'm kind of low on the totem pole. And also, there are lots of little white bald guys. So, you know, if I had a really distinctive look, if I looked like Marilyn Manson, yes, I think people would notice me more. But there's so many little bald guys in New York that we all kind of look the same. My favorite parts of Manhattan are the parks. Parks are so special because it's the one part of Manhattan where you can really have a sort of like 360-degree view. My favorite park in Manhattan would have to be Tompkins Square Park. It was originally a very punk rock park, and you had homeless people living there, and it was very degenerate, but then it got cleaned up, and now it's just so interesting because you can see like punk rockers and homeless people and yuppies and celebrities and old men and women and people walking their dogs. It's a wonderful, wonderful place. So if someone was coming to New York, specifically to Manhattan, my recommendation would be to visit the parks because they're beautiful and they're free. Yeah, things are running a little bit late, unfortunately, so. Getting some great exercise, though. One of the strangest things about the Gershwin Hotel is if you look at the front of it, it's got these light things, and if you look closely, you realize they look like semen. So at the very top of it, it's like little sperm cells coming down the front of the hotel. And it's not that they look like little sperm cells, they really look like little sperm cells. So even if you're not staying there, it's worth walking by and seeing these interesting little light sculptures going down. One of the most wonderful things for me about living in Manhattan is that there's so many good places to eat here. I mean, I have friends who are vegetarians who live up in the suburbs who maybe have like one restaurant or two restaurants. Within a 10-minute walk of my house, there are probably 15 vegetarian restaurants, different health food stores. There's a grocery store around the corner from my house that's open 24 hours a day, and I can get organic vegan food there anytime. New York really is sort of like vegetarian and vegan paradise.
Have you had this yet?
Take a sip of it.
It's really good.
Take a sip.
If you come to visit New York and you're a vegan, just come downtown because there's so many restaurants. I became a vegetarian 18 years ago, and I've now been a vegan for 16 years. My advice to someone who is interested in becoming a vegetarian or a vegan would be, I think that everyone in the world should be vegetarian or vegan, but you kind of do have to know what you're doing before you become a vegetarian. So my advice to people would be to do a little bit of research, you know. Go online or go to your local library and just learn a little bit about nutrition, learn a little bit about animal rights and animal welfare, so that way if you become a vegetarian you can do so in an intelligent way. Herman Melville was my great-great-great-granduncle, so obviously I never met him. One of the reasons why I think that Moby Dick is one of the first pieces of genuinely modern literature is because there really isn't a hero and there really isn't a villain. You know, in traditional literature, there was always the good guy and there was the bad guy, and the good guy was always good and the bad guy was always bad. One of the things that I think defines modern culture and modern literature is the idea that people are complicated and people are ambiguous. And so in a book like Moby Dick, you have the villain who is essentially Ahab, but you see what a tortured, tormented person he is. And the things that to some extent make him a villain are also what make him human, and we can all relate to that. So it's a strange book in that there are no heroes and there are no villains. Like, it's more a portrait of the human condition. If there were a new movie made of Moby Dick, I would actually like to write the music for the whole thing. Because it's, I mean, you have like the big dramatic scenes, like the whale hunts and, you know, when Ahab gets killed by Moby Dick. But the rest of it is also poignant and so ridden with pathos. You know, the innocence of the beginning. I mean, for someone who writes music for movies, it's almost a perfect movie to try and write music for because it has so many different elements to it. When I released Play, we thought it was going to hopefully sell 200,000 copies, and it went on to sell 10 million copies. Sometimes I would listen to it and I would love it. Sometimes I would listen to it and think it was going to be a complete and utter failure. Luckily, it went on to be successful, but with this record, it's very strange because I really love these songs. And that worries me. Like, the fact that I love this record so much makes me think that it's probably going to fail. On one hand, the album title is really simple because there are 18 songs on the record, but I also love the idea of having an album title that's a number, because that way in France it'll be called 18, in Japan it'll be called Juhachi, in Spain it'll be called 18. So the fact that it's not in English, it's this universal number of languages, and I mean of numbers, and that's the main reason. I mean, there's all sorts of other reasons, like 18 in Hebrew is the word for Haim, which is life. And Hangar 18 in New Mexico is where they took the space alien bodies after they crashed in the desert. All the songs on 18 were recorded before September 11th, and in the recording of the songs, I think I recorded around 150 songs. So certainly the songs that I chose to include on this record was very much influenced by September 11th. And there is a strange sort of numerological aspect to 18 and the fact that September 11th was my birthday and I turned 36 on September 11th, which is twice of 18, and then I turned 36 and 3 times 6 is 18, and the 11th song is a song the day before my birthday, which my birthday is the 11th, so I mean it's sort of like wheels within wheels within wheels. 18's this strange recurring number that keeps showing up. I think it's a very warm record, and I do think it's a soulful record, although it's hard for me to say that because, you know, I'm a little white guy, and it feels very pretentious for me to say that I've made a soul record, but that was certainly what I was trying to do. I wanted to make a record that was very warm and feminine and soulful and inviting. The song that I did with Sinead O'Connor, it's actually a song that I wrote 17 years ago. I'd written this song 17 years ago, and I've been holding on to it for 17 years, just waiting for the right singer to come along. And I always had this vision of someone with like this beautiful, clear voice singing the song called Harbor. And Sinead said that she was interested in maybe doing a song on my record, so I sent her this song, and she did her vocals. I've actually never met her, though. because she was afraid to fly after September 11th. And so I sent the tape to her in Ireland. She recorded the vocals and then sent it back to me in New York. I used to work in a record store, and every bag that left the record store had a drawing on it. So I became addicted to drawing. Like, I'm not a good drawer. I can only draw this one little guy, and it's sort of a self-portrait. And my nickname is the Little Idiot because I'm little and I'm not very smart. I first discovered The Simpsons in like 1990 or 1991, and at first the show was good, but then it just kept getting better. It kept getting smarter. It kept getting funnier, and I became obsessed because it's on twice a day here in the States. And so I would tape it every day. And there must have been 5 or 6 years where every single day I watched The Simpsons for an hour. Now my obsession has faded a little bit. I mean, I still love it just as much. And if I had to pick a favorite character, I don't know. It's like picking a favorite child. I mean, they're all wonderful. You know, I love Mr. Burns. I love Apu. I love Grandpa Simpson. I love Homer. I love Lisa. I love Bart. I love all of them. The people at MTV came to me a few months ago and asked me if I wanted to have my own show. It's a half-an-hour show where they would give me 30 minutes to play whatever videos I wanted to play and just talk. And so I said, yes, of course. I mean, I had access to MTV's archives. I can play any video. And I gave the show the name Senor Moby's House of Music, which I think is probably the dumbest name for a TV show ever. But it's the simplest TV show. You know, it's just me with a little home video camcorder, you know, talking into the camera, playing videos that I want to see. So after commercials, it ends up being like 24 minutes, 23 minutes. So I can only play 4 videos for every show. So stuff I've been playing has been things like Uncle with Tom York from Radiohead and this band Clinic and The Hives and The White Stripes and Basement Jaxx and Gorillaz. So it does tend to be a lot of more European, a lot of acts from Europe and from the UK. Because at the end of the day, that's what I like. I mean, in some ways, I grew up listening to a lot of European music, but at the same time, I'm an American. And New York is interesting because it's not really an American city. It's part American, it's part European, it's part South American, it's part Asian, it's part African. You know, it's this very international city. You know, you can walk down the street and you can encounter people and music and cultures from all around the world. And with the music I make, that's bound to be an influence. You know, like living in New York, I'm exposed to European music and I'm exposed to black music. I'm exposed to Latin music, all sorts of different types of music. And that comes through, I think, in the records that I've made. Musically, I've always really liked everything. You know, my background was playing classical music when I was very young. And then as time went on, I started playing guitar in rock bands and punk rock bands. But I never felt the need to choose one type of music over anything else. So even like in the early 90s when I had a reputation for making only dance music, I still loved punk rock and I still loved classical music and I still loved hip-hop. And as time has gone on, I've been lucky because I've been allowed to make records that reflect all the different types of music that I like. So now, you know, the records that I make are quite eclectic, you know, which is nice because a lot of musicians get forced by their record companies to do just, you know, one specific type of music. A lot of times I'll listen to music that I've made and I don't know where it comes from. I mean, there are some songs that I almost feel like they were gifts to me. Yeah, to some extent I almost feel like there are these songs that are floating around and for some reason, because I was in my studio at that time, they came and visited me as opposed to someone else, which is one reason why I like to work a lot, because you never know when inspiration is going to strike, and you never know when the songs are going to come down and visit you. I mean, sometimes I'll listen to a piece of music I've made and I'll feel like I'm the author of it, I'll feel like I'm the person who made it, and other times I'll listen to pieces of music I've made and feel like I'm just a vehicle. I used to be very didactic, and I used to have this very simple black and white understanding of the world. 10 years ago, 15 years ago, I was very radical, but radical with a very simple understanding of the world. And now as I've gotten older, I think I'm still radical, but with a much more, hopefully, tolerant, complicated understanding of the world. I mean, the world is ancient and complicated. So who am I to be so presumptuous to try and generalize about the world? You know, I'm not that smart. I'm not that old. I don't understand, the world is complicated. So I think I'm radical now to the degree that I espouse tolerance and non-judgmentalism. I'm not specifically influenced by art or literature or film or other creative disciplines, but to some extent they enter the work. If I'm making a record and it's a personal record, it's very much a sort of self-portrait, and obviously I'm the product of every book I've read and every painting I've seen and every movie I've watched, so on a more subtle level that's bound to come through in the work that I do. I can't be so presumptuous as to call myself a good or great musician. I mean, I make music and I love the music that I make, and I hope other people like it as well. And the music I make is definitely the product of sadness and melancholy and feeling to some extent disassociated with the world around me. There definitely seems to be a correlation or a relationship between people who are maybe a little bit dissatisfied with themselves or their lives, people who are a little bit melancholy, going on to make really interesting works of art and really interesting works of music. There aren't too many examples of really happy, well-adjusted people writing great books or making great pieces of music. So there's definitely a relationship between melancholy and good art. Even though I've had some success making music, I've still spent my whole life feeling kind of insecure and feeling kind of inadequate. And just because I've sold some records doesn't mean that the emotional habits of a lifetime are suddenly going to go away. You know, I'm still the same person I was 5 years ago and 10 years ago in terms of having these feelings of low self-esteem and inadequacy. And maybe at some point they'll go away, but I don't know. I've had them my whole life. Thank you for watching. Once again, I'm Moby here in New York City, and I hope you enjoyed yourself, and hopefully I'll see you soon. I'm just looking at your sweatshirt. That's not going to stop the sound. You're not a TV producer, are you? Okay, let's just keep going. Tag team journalism. Is that killing you?
Yeah, it's a problem.
Okay, I understand. I understand. I understand. I understand. Shh. Let me answer the question.
I'll do another one of them.